what we do with the cloud formation. We create the whole infrastructure by scripts, right? So if you need to create EC2 machine, what you gonna write in the script? The code for the AMI, and this code, for example, for Ohio region. But if you give this code for a person and tries to create it in London region, it wouldn't work because the code for the so you have to be very careful. You have to understand the details very well. You really have to understand the details very well. All right, as we said, so for the AMI, you have the quick start AMIs, you have the AWS marketplace AMIs, and you have the community AMIs, and you have the private AMIs. All right. Also, and here this is very important. Besides the normal charges for running an EC2 instance, your AWS account might also be billed hourly amounts or license fees for the use of AMI software itself. Okay, so you have to be careful which you use. I mean, if you're having a vendor AMI like Cisco AMI you are using, so you might need to be, there's different charges. All right, so this is something I'm sure you're familiar with the instance types. All right. Okay, so you have to know, okay, should your needs change over time, you can easily move to a different instance type by stopping the instance, editing the instance type, and starting it again. So there's different instance types, right? All right. So AWS allocates hardware resources for your instance according to the instance type, all right, or hardware profile. When you say instance type, it's the hardware profile. It's another name profile. So the particular workload you're planning for your instance will determine the type you choose. The idea is to balance cost against your need for compute power, memory, and storage space. Okay, you'll find a type that offers exactly the amount of each to satisfy both your application and budget. All right. So when you go down there, the first thing in your AMI that you have to watch for is, and this is not a comprehensive list, is the instance type, right? That type. So there's a groups, okay, general purpose T3, T2. Remember T2 that we used a lot, M5, M4. Compute optimized C5, C4, and this could be very expensive. Memory optimized, all right, accelerated computing, storage optimized. There's many different ones that you need to take a look. All right. So in here they talk a little bit about the general purpose. Just read about it. Then they talk about the compute optimized. They'll talk about the memory optimized. They'll talk about accelerated computing. Okay, where you have the GPU, NVIDIA, and all of that. This is for machine learning, deep learning. Maybe that's what you need to get. There is storage optimized, the H1, the i3, the D2, and there is others now by now. Okay, made up of storage optimized family that have large, low latency instant storage volume as large as 16 terabyte. Okay, and so on. So it depends on the application you're going to use, the hardware that you need. Then you configure the environment for your instance. All right. So you're going to pick the region, and I already explained. Regions are different, charges are different. The AMIs might not be available in all the region. So you have to configure that. The EC2 resources can be managed only when you are located within their region. Okay, within their region. Okay. Anyways, and then the VPCs, we spoke about the VPCs, the virtual private cloud. So usually you have one default cloud when you go to a region, but you create up to 5, I remember, unless they change the limits. Okay. And by the way, it's a good thing always because limits keep changing. And this limit says, so if you go to AWS limits, okay, VPC in here. So you go in here, So VPCs per region 5. My memory is good. All right. So, okay, subnets per VPC 200. IP4 CIDR block per VPC 5 and IP6 CIDR block per VPC 1. All right, so these are Amazon VPC and then the DNS and on. So there's limits. If you need to check the limits per region, just Google it. Again, the first link will tell you the story. If not the first, then the second link. All right, so going in here, as you see in here, VPC. So in here, there's in here three VPCs: VPC testing, VPC staging, and VPC production. So usually you start with the testing, okay, then you have the staging, then this is a production. So this is three VPCs in one region. You could have up to five. So for staging, for production is already connected with the internet, for staging with the company site, and this is with the company site. So there is a plans when you try to think. Then after that, important topic is tenancy. All right. So when launching the EC2 instance, you have the opportunity to choose the tenancy model. The default is shared tenancy. The default and the cheapest, which is shared tenancy. Okay, you have EC2, but it's not a hardware for you only. Others have EC2s in them. So it might be a security issue. The government does not allow that, maybe. All right, they don't need to have a shared tenancy for their servers, where your instance will run as a virtual machine on a physical server that concurrently hosting other instances. Those other instances might well be owned and operated by other AWS customers. Okay, to meet special regulations requirement, your organization's instances might need an extra level of isolation. Okay, then you go for dedicated instance option. Okay, to ensure that your instance will run in its own dedicated physical server. This means that you won't be sharing the server with resources owned by different customers. All right. The dedicated host option allowed you to actually identify and control the physical server. So it's a step up. So shared, dedicated host is a step up. All right. All right. So it's like different. Okay. Configuring instance behavior. Uh, okay, so in here you can optionally tell EC2 to execute commands on your instance as it boots. How did we do that? We did that right before. How did we do it? Do you remember user data? There's two things like the metadata and user data, right? All right. So that's what we did, okay? Bootstrapping. So you could do all of that. Then instance pricing. Uh, Pricing, it's changing, is evolving. But take a look at different examples. So you have the on-demand model, all right? And you have the reserved instance. You could reserve it for 1 year or 3 years, all right? And you have different models. So in here, this is on demand, this reserve 3 years term, and this is on demand. All right. So in here, look at the difference in the price, the cost per year. So for on demand, the cost per year is 50. When you reserve it for 3 years, it becomes like $38 per year. Percentage wise, is like a big saving. uh, in here, look at this server in here. On demand is like $10,000. All right, but if it's reserved, it's like $4,000. All right, so if you have to have a server for 3 years, why you do on demand? When you do the reservation, reserved, the servers will be. So you have to take a look at that. Then after that, instance life cycle, we're talking here about the timeline. The instance will shut it down and cause it resources to reallocate it to a general. Okay, so what is the lifetime of your instance? We spoke about elastic IP addresses. Okay, you have to address that. We spoke about security groups. Okay, how security groups work, right? And you know what security group? It's like a firewall for the machine. Okay, okay. What will happen if you stop the machine or hibernate it or whatever? So you have to take a look at that. There is resources tags. So this will help you, for managing the pool of servers, which is a key value, right? So you have like key and the value. All right. And in here we have the surface limits. Okay, surface limits. There's limits, right? So for example, if necessary, you can request AWS to raise your ceiling for a particular service. As an example, you are allowed only 5 VPCs, we saw that, per region and 5,000 key pairs across your account. You can find, okay, so I mean, that's the limit, but always you could contact AWS and they will increase it for you. Then EC2 storage volumes. We spoke about this and we created like storage volumes in our systems, if you remember, right? So elastic block storage volumes, and when you create it, so you can attach as many elastic block or EPS elastic block volumes to your instance. We created one, but you could have created. It's like hard disk drives. You could have multiple hard disk drives in your system. Okay, always, and also they have different SLAs, surface agreement. Uh, all right. So, for example, um, uh, um, uh, they are promising at least 5 nines. They are promising 5 nines for availability. All right. Then you have different types like EPS provisioned, IOPS SSD, EPS general purpose. Okay, and there is throughput optimized HDD, and there is the gold HDD. So if you go in here, if you don't know what I'm talking about, okay, so in here volumes, you see the volumes in here. Okay, create a volume. All right, these are the types. So you have the general purpose SSD GP2, the general purpose SSD GP3. This is a new one. I did not see it before, and it's not in the book. I'm telling you, they are changing and adding stuff. The IOPS 1 and IOPS 2 was there, the gold was there, the throughput optimize was there, the magnetic, I did not see it. So in here, I mean, the GP3 new to me, and this okay is a new to me. If, for example, in here, you could read more about it from here, or you could just Google it. Okay, so as you see in here, okay, what we have the provisioned IOPS SSD general. So the general purpose SSD here, you see it in here. Then the number one is the number two is general purpose SSD, then a throughput, then the gold, and then a comparison. What is the value volume size, the maximum IOPS? IOPS is input output per second. All right, and for databases, you need to have hard disk drive with higher IOPS. All right, and okay, clear. Then you talk about features in here. Instance store volumes. There's different volumes. So instance store volume SSDs that are physically attached to the server hosting your instance or connected via fast NVMe interface. Different ones. Take a look at it. And then accessing your EC2 instances. All right, how you access the instance. All right, and we already covered that, right? How we access that, right? Okay. Uh, we already covered this for, remember last time we did that in the lab in here. Okay, curl, okay, for the metadata, to get the metadata. Okay, uh, and here securing your EC2 instance. So what we use for that security group? And security group, is it stateless or stateful? Anybody remembers? Is it stateful or stateless? Stateful. So once you open it for inbound, it will open for outbound automatically. It has a memory, stateful security group. And we created the security group, we configured the ports. Then IAM roles, we'll talk about it later. Then NAT devices. So what is NAT? Network Address Translation. Uh, I think we created that last time also in the lab, in the NAT device, which is like it's in the private network. How we allow machines in the private network to access the internet. So we have to have a NAT gateway, right? So if we go in here and go not in here, let's go in here, EC2. So if you go, where to go? Network security groups, elastic placement groups, Caper network, no, not here. Snapshot, we're not here. Capacity, scheduled instances. Take a look in here. This is like scheduled instances, dedicated hosts, reserved instances. These are different types. Remember. Let's go to the VPC then. VPC. Ah, VPC. Where am I here? No, VPC. Private cloud. The VPC in here, that's the VPCs. Okay, so your VPC subnets, routing tables, we covered that. Internet gateway, this is to get you access to the internet. Egress only internet gateway, this is V for VP6. Carrier gateways, DHCP options, elastic IP address, we covered that. Managed prefix list, endpoints, endpoint services, NAT gateway. Here you go. All right. So we have to assign for the subnet a NAT gateway. Where we create the NAT gateway, in the public subnet or in the private subnet?
Public.
In the public subnet. All right. So that will give access to the machines to have an access. You could create a NAT gateway, assign it for the public subnet, and then configure the security groups that a machine in the private network to have access to the internet. All right. So that's what is NAT gateway. I think we did it last time, Joe. Okay, this figure in here, it's clear in here. This figure. Okay, let me show you here. Okay, if you could see. So as you see in here, this in here is RDS subnet. This is in a private. This is like MySQL database, right? This is a public subnet, and this is a private subnet, right? So for the private subnet to be able to access the internet, it has to go through a NAT, VPC NAT gateway. Okay, so it could, for example, the person sitting in here could do CNN.com or FoxNews.com, but no one from outside will be able to get to the machine, all right, because it's in the private network. So we have to use the NAT devices or NAT gateways. All right. Key pair we created many times, as key pair. Also there's a system manager, but we have to have a client for it. Placement of groups. This is, you could place EC2 in a certain group for different reasons. We'll talk about it later. Then you have the elastic beanstalk. We spoke about it earlier, that you could just provide the code and AWS will create all the devices for you. You don't have to worry about it. AWS will take care of it. Then you have Lambda. This is serverless application. We'll talk about it later in the class. VM import export. So VM import export allows you easily to move virtual machine images back and forth between your on-premise VMware environment and your AWS account. Okay, and we'll use S3 bucket for that. Elastic load balancing and auto scaling, we'll talk about it next time. All right, you could create elastic load balance and auto scaling. All right. This is what I ask you to do, the AWS CLI. I gave you the instruction in the Teams. Please go ahead and do it. Okay, create the CLI, and that's it for this chapter. All right, so as you see, most of the stuff we have covered. Okay, and it's a good thing to go through it. Just it will give you solid information with the hand on, and then of course you're gonna get to you're gonna get to the questions, right? Let's try a couple of the questions before we break. All right, so let's try number 4. Okay. uh, okay, the sensitivity of the data your company works with means that the instance you run must be secured through complete physical isolation. So that's the key, complete physical isolation. That means from now it's not a shared tenant, right? Can't be a shared tenant, right? What should you specify as you configure a new instance? Okay, is it a dedicated host tenancy? Yes. Shared tenancy? No. Dedicated instance tenancy? No. There's no such thing. Isolated tenancy? No such thing. So it's A, and we just covered it. Okay. Let's take a look at 7, for example. Which of the following configuration details can be changed on the existing EC2 instance? Which ones you cannot change? We cannot change them. Okay, you already created an instance. What is one thing you cannot change? All right. So could you change the public IP address? Yes.
Yes.
Restart the machine, it will change. Could you change the security group? Firewall? Yes, we
Yes.
did that multiple times. Could you
Yes.
change the instance type?
Yes.
Yes, shut it down, change it from T2 to T3. Could you change the AMI, the Amazon machine image? No, you can change it. All right, and so on and so forth. So once you read the chapter, you go through it, you'll be able to solve all the problems um, easily, I think. You agree? I hope you agree. If you
Yep.
don't,
Good.
if you
Yes.
okay, all right. So I think we